So now we're going to talk about what happens when I win the bid or when I make an offer and is it accepted by the seller. We write a contract, all the contract documents are executed, the disclosures are given, and then we proceed to closing after all the payments have been made. So we refer to that as an individual purchaser. There may, in a multi-property auction, we may have sold 10 or 15 properties, but in most situations there are individual purchasers. That means that you are a single individual that has purchased a single property, or you may have multiple properties that you have bought. They may be done on individual contracts. Now we're ready to go to closing. The payments are made and all the documentation is sent to the closing agent. So there are things like surveys. Who pays for the surveys? Once again, read the terms and conditions because it may say that the buyer is responsible for paying for the survey. Let's look at the other closing costs that are normally involved. Now let me back up. A lot of times I hear what is normal. And I want you to understand that closing costs and all the terms in the contract are negotiable. So as an auctioneer, I am negotiating the offer and the acceptance on behalf of the purchaser and the seller when I'm calling bids and you're making the offers. However, the documents will explain what each party is responsible for paying at closing. Taxes. Taxes in a lot of situations, but not every situation, the taxes are prorated as of the day of closing. But be careful. In the terms and conditions, it may say that the purchaser will pay all taxes. What about if there's back taxes? Once again, this is explained in the documents. So what we're doing in the terms and conditions is we're laying out the guidelines on how that you bid, you make your offer, and then you ultimately buy. So you're making offers on a competitive basis. Everybody is bidding under the same terms. Now, what happens if your terms, or you can't abide by those terms? It's going to be ultimately the seller's position to accept, to reject your terms or other let's just say contingencies that may get added into the sales contract. If the seller accepts, then you may have a deal. But beware, be cautious to read those terms and conditions. Your payments are very, very important. Make sure that your payments are ready, because most auctioneers are going to look up and say, are you ready to buy this piece of real property? Are you ready to buy this luxury watch or maybe a coin or jewelry? Are you ready to pay for it now? Keep in mind that personal property closings happen almost immediately. And why do I say almost immediately? Because you buy the piece of personal property and now you're expected to complete the transaction after the fall of the hammer, or when the auctioneer says sold. Now what happens is, as soon as the invoice is made, your payment is due. If you're purchasing real property, it may take 10, 15, 20 days, whatever is negotiated or whatever the terms and conditions may outline in advance. That's what the buyer is expected to adhere to in order to go to that closing. So individual purchasers, you may buy one piece of property, you may buy 10. Commonly in a personal property auction, you may buy 10, 15, you may buy a truckload of stuff. However, each piece of property may have its own terms and conditions. In a real property auction, when you're making the offer and the auctioneer is accepting bids, it's the same, except you may be only bidding on one tract. Look around, check out your competition. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're the high bidder, you're expected to close on the piece of property in cash or other terms that are set forth. Now, I want to mention financing. I get a lot of questions about, well, my purchaser wants to buy the property. However, they have to seek out a loan or a mortgage to buy this piece of property. This is what I suggest. You make sure that everything is prepared in advance before bidding and buying, because in a lot of situations, you're going to be asked to put up a deposit. There may be an auctioneer's fee. That may be, it could be a few $100s, it could be a few $1,000s. There could be that buyer's premium that you have to pay, and you need to remember this is all subject to risk. And what do I mean by that? If you place your money down and you do not close, you could lose your money. Be prepared in advance. We want to make sure that you make a good, solid purchase, but we also want to make sure that you have everything all lined up to make that happen with ease. Trust me, these sellers want to sell their property. They want to get as much money as they possibly can. That's their job. Your job is to bid and get the best deal. But where we all come together is on that final price, a competitive market offer price that a buyer is willing to pay, a seller is willing to accept under the terms and conditions that has been set forth. Read those terms and conditions. Be prepared to buy. You just may walk out of the yard with a deal, and you may be happy. And guess what? If that seller's happy, then everybody's happy. Let's go to closing and let's transfer the property under the conditions of sale.
Well, that's who I am. Here's what I say. I'm the auctioneer. People like it that way.